Today I want to talk about why I don't like Gen Z. Gen Z is a generation born between the years of 1997 and 2012. Gen Z is the generation that comes after the millennials. They were a generation that was primarily raised on smartphones, unlike millennials. They were raised on social media, and they are the children of predominantly Gen X. And Gen X were, for the most part, decent people, you know. And then when you look at modern day society and the beliefs of Gen Z, it's pretty tough. I like to characterize Gen Z as a group of iPad kids terrorizing the general public, because that's essentially what they are. Some people argue, why do you care so much about Gen Z? Why don't you just focus on something else? Why don't you focus on your own life and improving your own life and your own wealth and your own happiness? This is a form of deflection in their argument, because Gen Z is making the world an unbearable place to live. One of the features of Gen Z is their entitlement, their greed, their narcissism, and their lack of self-awareness. And I guess we could toss in their lack of common sense into there. Gen Z wants to be paid large amounts of money for doing menial labor. Menial labor. They only want to work a few hours a day, preferably around 5 hours a day. And then from there, they want to have all the free time in the world, but they want to be paid like they're working full time. Gen Z sees $25 an hour as something that is almost a joke to them. $25 an hour to Gen Z is play money. These are people who believe they should be paid at least six figures to deliver for Uber and DoorDash and Grubhub and Instacart. Gen Z has the lowest reading scores in the last 20 years and the lowest math scores in the last 30 years. They are a generation of failures. They can't read, they can't write, they can't do math. Basic math at that. The U.S. military has determined that 74% of Gen Zers that have not even graduated from high school yet are not eligible to serve in the military because they are either too overweight, mentally unfit, excessive substance abuse, and we're not talking about pot, or for a multitude of other reasons. If you remember, just about any idiot could get into the military back in the day. There was no such thing as you can't serve in the military. Alright? If there was one place that everyone could go, it was to the military. There was always somewhere for everyone there. Alright? Even as cannon fodder. But no, not Gen Z. Because they don't trust Gen Z with anything. They wouldn't even put Gen Z on the field because Gen Z are a bunch of traitors. Look at the one who crossed into North Korea thinking that he would find a better life in North Korea. You know, this criminal soldier who did that, and then turned around and said that he was escaping from the West to escape racial persecution. Gen Z are a bunch of little jerks. They make the world around us a darker place. They make the world so miserable, so terrible to live in. They make the future so dark that I can't stop talking about them. You can't ask Gen Z to define a woman without watching them have a nervous breakdown. They're more interested in pronouns than they are in learning how to read and write. If you ask Gen Z to do some math, they'll pull out their smartphone, pull up the calculator app, and then they still can't figure it out. Gen Z is a generation that has zero common sense. But they all think they're brilliant. Another sad thing about Gen Z is that they have very poor hygiene. They smell bad. And they think that it's their privilege, their right to not bathe. These are some bad people. And they seem to think that they're going to take over the world when all the other generations are gone. They seem to, again, this just goes back to the fact that they can't do math very well. They don't comprehend that when it comes to the millennials are only 15 years older than Gen Zers, and Gen X is only 30 years older than Gen Z. Alright? There's an entirely other generation behind Gen Z, known as Gen Alpha, and in just a few years, an entire generation will already be born. Alright? In just a few years, Gen Alpha will be 15. Okay? And Gen Z doesn't seem to comprehend this. They think they are the end-all and the end-all be-all, and the world cannot continue on without them. These guys can't read or write. They won't be flying planes or driving buses. Alright? These people are barely fit to do sanitation work, and most of them won't do sanitation work because they're too lazy and entitled. Alright? People don't even trust Gen Z to deliver their food, let alone deliver a package. UPS doesn't want them. Just check it out. How old is the average UPS driver? Like in their 30s or 40s. UPS doesn't want them. Gen Z is a terrible group of people. They are mean, they're narcissistic, they're evil, they're cruel. And, it'd be fine if we could just walk away and forget about them. But they have so much influence on society right now. And the first thing they do is go to social media and try to cancel everyone over everything. If just a single Gen Zer complains, oh, we need to do something about it, we need to censor this, we need to immediately take action. They are bad people, man. They're totally bad people. And everyone wants to blame Gen X, like, oh, Gen X is wrong. They're the ones who put an iPad in front of them. It's not the iPad, it's the generation. These people, they got everything. They lived good lives, overall comfortable lives, and as a result of that, they didn't see the harshness of the world. To be honest, they don't care. They genuinely don't care. They just want to get their money. They just want to get their money. They're also such a destructive generation and a promiscuous generation where they think that a girl thinks that going through her whole phase is something to be celebrated, and then after she goes through her whole phase, there's supposed to be a multitude of beta males that are going to say, hey baby, let's get married, and of course she has very high standards for them, because those guys need to make at least 6 figures to be with a woman that has a body count higher than the Doomslayer. I don't think so. Ultimately, men are waking up and realizing that we don't need to deal with this nonsense in the West. That's why men are walking away from Western society and Western women. But Gen Z is a reflection of this as a whole. Alright? Gen Z they have no survival skills, most of them, and they don't want to learn. They don't want to learn how to read, they don't want to learn how to write, they think long division is voodoo. Let's be realistic. I created a poll and I asked which generation is most likely to practice witchcraft, and it was overwhelmingly Gen Z. And the crazy thing is that whenever I talk poorly about Gen Z, they're constantly trying to silence me. Why are they trying to silence me? Because they know what they're doing, and they want to silence everyone. They don't want anyone to talk about them. They want to hide in their darkness, because they are dark people. They are narcissistic people. They are mean people. They are cruel people. They are disrespectful people. I created a poll on my channel recently, and I basically asked, what do you guys think would happen? What do you think would happen if God cursed Gen Z, you know, what would they do? And it's interesting how people responded to that. It was actually, it's pretty clear, you know, pretty cut and dry, pretty cut and paste. You know, if God cursed Gen Z would respond by humbling themselves and seeking God's forgiveness. And that's only 7%. 7% of the votes out of 187. Refusing to acknowledge God is real and continuing to be pest, 30% of the vote. Or how about this one? Calling God unjust and trying to cancel him. Now that has 63% of the vote. That's Gen Z. That's Gen Z in a nutshell. I have another poll here, and the funny thing is this is another reason why Gen Z doesn't want me speaking out. Because ultimately, most generations don't love them. Alright, society does not love Gen Z. That's why they're called the Zoomers. Who would have ever think a generation could come along? They're despised as much of the boomers, as much as the boomers, and then you have Gen Z who are just like the boomers. The Zoomers. Alright, here's a poll for you. You're trapped in a house surrounded by zombies and need to sacrifice something to escape. Which of the following will you sacrifice to them? So, I have 636 votes on this poll, and guess what? We have, the choices are dog, backpack filled with supplies, Gen Z are trapped with you, or your only flashlight. Yeah, well, the dog got 6%, so 6% of people would sacrifice the dog, which honestly I think is way too high, but chances are, let's be real, the people who voted for the dog were Gen Z. Because you can figure that out when you look at the backpack filled with supplies, which only has 2% of the votes. So most people, including Gen Z, would not let go of that backpack. Your only flashlight, that's also at 6%. And then Gen Z are trapped with you, is at 86%. So 86% of people would sacrifice a Gen Zer, to zombies to make that escape. Over sacrificing their dog, or a backpack filled with supplies, or their only flashlight. You know? I mean, that's just Gen Z. Terrible people, man. Terrible people. But those are my thoughts, and I want to know what you think, if you agree that Gen Z is the worst generation in modern history and one of the worst generations in history, period. I want to hear your ideas on this, so let's talk about it in the comments. Like the video if you like it, don't forget to subscribe, and if you like the video, share the video, and just remember that all roads lead to MWA, men walking away, and cheers.